It was a crisp September morning in 2026, the kind of day in Pine Valley, Montana, where the air smells like pine needles and the sky stretches wide enough to make you feel small. I was out by the northern fence of my family's ranch, the one I'd inherited from my grandpa just 8 months prior, checking the posts I'd stained last week. The scent of cedar still lingered faintly, grounding me in the moment. Then I saw Ida's sleek silver BMW creeping up my private road like it owned the place. The driver's window slid down, and out stepped Clara Monroe, all sharp blazer and polished heels that somehow didn't falter on the gravel. She clutched a certified envelope like it was a sacred relic, her smile practiced but cold, never quite reaching her eyes. She introduced herself as the CFO of the management company for Crestview Heights, the fancy subdivision bordering my land. Handing me the envelope, she launched into a rehearsed spiel about a special assessment for infrastructure upgrades that would supposedly benefit my ranch too. I tore it open right there, not giving her the satisfaction of waiting. The number hit me like a punch, $425,000, due in 30 days, with daily interest piling up after that. But it was the fine print on page 3 that set my nerves on edge, a clause saying that by paying, I'd waive any claims to boundaries, easements, or title disputes forever. My grandpa always said land tells the truth, but paperwork? That's where the lies hide. And this paperwork was screaming trouble. I'm Jake Larson, a former county surveyor who left the office life 6 years ago to run this ranch. I know a trap when I see one, and that clause was a neon warning sign. Clara stood there, her fingers tapping her clipboard in a nervous rhythm that didn't match her confident posture. When I pressed her on what kind of infrastructure could possibly cost that much for a ranch with its own well, septic, and private road, she rattled off vague buzzwords: watershed management, emergency access routes. But I knew something she didn't. Crestview Heights had just finished a massive community center renovation last year. I'd watched the crews from my porch every morning, coffee in hand. Her story didn't add up. After she left, warning me about legal action and a lien on my property if I ignored the assessment, I headed straight to my office and fired up the county GIS system. One perk of my old job? I know those databases like the back of my hand. Within minutes, I had plat maps for my ranch and Crestview Heights on my screens. That's when I found it. A tiny note in the plat index, labeled PL 82, dated 1972. It referenced a master ground lease with a 50-year term. Do the math: 1972 plus 50 equals 2022. That was 4 years ago. My heart raced. Had Grandpa known about this? Had he left me a puzzle to solve? For the next 4 hours, I dove into county records, cross-referencing deeds and plats, unearthing documents that hadn't seen daylight in decades. The truth clicked into place like a lock snapping shut. The original developer of Crestview Heights hadn't bought the land outright, they'd leased it from my grandpa's estate. The terms were airtight, a 50-year lease at a nominal rate, with a purchase option that required specific conditions, like securing independent water rights. That option had to be exercised by December 31st, 2021, and from what I could see, no valid exercise was ever recorded. If I was right, the entire subdivision, every house, street, and gated entrance could revert to my ranch when the lease expired. That explained the $425,000 assessment and the sneaky indemnity clause. They weren't after infrastructure money, they were trying to trick me into signing away my rights before I figured out what I owned. I launched my survey drone, a pricey toy I'd bought last year, thinking it was overkill. Now it was my ace. The overlay feature mapped the PL 82 boundaries onto the current landscape, and my stomach dropped. The red lines didn't just touch Crestview Heights, they swallowed it whole. Every mansion, the pool, the tennis courts, even the gatehouse with its fake security guard, was legally trespassing. I walked to the old survey pin at the edge of what I'd thought was my property line, the cold metal rough under my fingers. This wasn't just about money, it was about families who'd built lives here. Kids playing in yards, retirees thinking they'd found their forever homes. But that assessment? It showed the HOA wasn't playing fair either. They knew the lease was up and were covering their tracks at my expense. The next day, I got a call from Edward Pierce, the HOA president. His voice dripped with that fake friendliness that makes your skin crawl, like a car salesman pushing a lemon. He invited me to their office to discuss a mutually beneficial solution. I agreed, but slipped a pocket recorder into my jacket. Paranoid? Maybe, but my gut said I'd need it. The Crestview Heights office was a converted house, all neutral tones and fake columns screaming suburban status. Edward greeted me with a handshake that lasted too long, ushering me into a conference room where Clara sat with a stack of papers thick enough to prop a door. They'd laid out coffee and donuts, the kind of spread meant to soften you up. I stuck to water. Edward launched into a speech about community synergy, while Clara nodded like a metronome. Then he slid a document across the table, a mutual infrastructure cooperation agreement. I read every word, and buried on page 8, between clauses about drainage easements, was the real Troppa clause acknowledging the HOA's ownership of disputed boundaries and waiving my rights to title claims. Same trick, fancier wrapping. When I called it out, asking about PL 82 and the lease, the room froze. Clara's pen stopped mid-note. Edward's coffee cup paused halfway to his mouth. Then Clara whispered something to Edward, faint but clear on my recorder. Get the boundary package, version 3. Version 3? That slip told me they had multiple versions of something they didn't want me to see. I hit the county recorder's office just before closing, nearly getting locked out as the doors started sliding shut. The clerk, Maggie, knew me from my surveyor days. She pulled the original PL 82 plat from a dusty folder, its hand-drawn lines a work of art. Annotations in the margins blue ink from 1982, green from 1990 detailed failed boundary adjustments and retained mineral rights. A red note from December 2021, just days before the option deadline, read, Extension denied water rights non-compliant, state reg. 882.1. Certified copies in hand. I felt the weight of history. This was Grandpa's legacy, and I was holding the detonator. I called Arthur Hayes, a notary and lawyer who'd known Grandpa. His office smelled of leather and wood polish, shelves lined with law books older than me. He opened a 1972 notary log, pointing to a red asterisked entry for PL 82. Your grandpa was sharp, he said, showing me the lease's purchase option. The buyer needed independent water rights for 75% of the development, verified by the state. A December 2021 State Water Board document, stamped denied, in red, showed Crestview Heights failed to meet it. Arthur pulled an empty folder. If they'd exercised the option, this'd be full deeds, title transfers, tax reassessments. Nothing's here. He pressed his notary seal onto blank paper. 40 years, and I've never notarized a purchase for Crestview Heights. Strange, right? His advice hit hard. Those families didn't make this mess. Clara and her crew did. Find a way to punish the guilty without ruining the innocent. Back home, I noticed utility flags marking water lines crossing my ranch. Arthur's words, echoed no easements, were recorded for these. The HOA's infrastructure was trespassing too. Then I met Ethan Cole, a former HOA treasurer, in the county records basement. He slid a folder across a metal table. I'm done covering for them, he said, showing me utility maps. The latest ones, from last month, moved a pump station onto HOA land and paper. But Ethan was there in '98 when it was built on my ranch with temporary easements from Grandpa. He also had board minutes showing Clara knew about the lease expiration since June and planned the assessment to trick me. Footsteps interrupted us. Clara's nephew, Liam, recording with his phone. Ethan didn't flinch, declaring himself a whistleblower under state law, exposing the HOA's fraud. I recorded back, warning Liam about illegal recording in a government building. He backed off, muttering about Clara's lawyers. I filed a lease pendants that afternoon, freezing all Crestview Heights property transactions. By evening, real estate agents were panicking, and I got a threatening text with a photo of my truck, timestamped from the records office. You're making enemies you can't afford. I forwarded it to my lawyer, Lucas Reed, who laughed. Textbook intimidation. Vivian's having a bad night. Your filing's been pulled 53 times online. The next day, a leaked email chain hit the local news, showing the HOA board imploding. Edward accused Clara of hiding the lease. Another member demanded her resignation. Their lawyer quit, citing conflicts. A forensic accountant, appointed as special master, froze the HOA's spending and found $2.8 million siphoned to Clara's company for fake projects. The county plat hearing was electric, packed with residents whispering like they were in a courtroom drama. I laid out the evidence. The lease, the failed option, the water rights denial. The title insurer's rep dropped a bomb. No coverage until the title was clear, freezing all sales and refinances. Clara tried a desperate move, waiving a 1998 quitclaim deed. One look, and I knew it was fake. The notary seal was from a county Grandpa never dealt with, and the date was post-trust. A bank employee stood up, revealing Clara scanned documents in the HOA's safe deposit box days before, documents absent from the last audit. Chaos erupted. Clara withdrew the deed, her composure shattered. I offered a new lease, 30 years, $5 per household monthly for 6 months, then $60 yearly, with permanent easements for homes. Fair, maybe too fair, but I wanted families safe. The judge approved it, slamming Clara for fraud and referring her to the Attorney General. Charges followed: fraud, embezzlement, breach of duty. Clara's career was toast, her assets targeted for restitution. Edward filed bankruptcy, his dreams built on lies collapsing. On a clear October morning in 2026, Clara delivered the original PL 82 lease at the recorder's office, her face haggard. A surveyor verified every boundary, and the documents were stamped at 11:52 a.m., ending decades of deceit. A new plaque at Crestview Heights entrance read, "Leased land authorized access only." The first $1,800 lease payment arrived, a small but symbolic victory. I rode the fence line that evening, the posts weathered but strong, watching Crestview's lights flicker on. Families were back to normal, kids playing, barbecues firing up. Grandpa's legacy held firm, and justice felt quiet but real: a check, a plaque, a truth no one could bury. What would you have done with that kind of power over a whole community? Would you have burned it all down or offered a way out like I did? And what about Clara? Was she a mastermind or just desperate? Drop your thoughts below, hit like if this got your blood pumping, and subscribe for more stories where truth fights dirty.